Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Fran. God asked me to share my testimony with you all, so I decided to make this video as I share with you my story. Last summer, there were a lot of noticeable changes that started happening at my previous employer, and I knew it was time to start thinking about what's next for me. August of 2024, I casually started looking for another job. I have not looked for a job in over 9 years, so when I started, I quickly realized that the world of job hunting was drastically changing, or has drastically changed. By the end of August, I decided to focus on getting my CISP certification. It's a Certified Information Systems Security Professional, and it's something that I was supposed to do a few years ago, but I kept putting it off, procrastinating, starting and stopping. So I studied for over a year and got serious in August. In September, I wrote out a prayer to God asking Him to help me pass my exam on the first try and to help me find a job. I wrote out details like the compensation I wanted, including bonuses and benefits, as well as a work-life balance that I was looking for. I put that prayer on the wall by my bed, and I looked at it every day, not knowing how or when, but I believed that He would. In November, I took my exam and passed at 100 questions answered. If you know anything about the CISP exam, then you know that passing at 100 is a pretty big deal versus having to answer all 150 questions, okay? Although I passed the exam in November, I had to wait an additional month before I could actually put my certification on my resume due to having to go through the verification and enforcement process to prove that I met all of the additional requirements. Throughout these couple of months still, I was applying for jobs, making different adjustments to my resume, and getting different tips and tricks, especially around how to get over past the AI systems from others and just trying to figure out how to navigate this job market. Yet and still not getting any calls back. In January of 2024, I started to hear rumbles about layoffs and outsourcing. By the end of January, my boss resigned. He made a statement to me that he was going to have to do something that he didn't want to do, so he walked away, which just immediately raised red flags for me. And it confirmed the rumors that we've been hearing. In February of 2025, we ended up receiving our bonuses for last year's performance. We usually don't get them until March. So for me, I took this as a preparation sign from God. So leading into the weekend that we received our bonuses, I also got confirmation that layoffs were in fact near. So I immediately started telling my colleagues and staff to hold on to those funds that they just received and to start looking for something else. Over the next month, I started receiving more signs and information, and it was just falling in my lap. It was nothing but God preparing me and others. It got down to the point that we knew the date that they were going to cut us out of the systems. Yet and still, even knowing all of this information ahead of time, we did not do anything malicious to the environment. We cooperated and gave them everything that they asked for. Some of us were put on garden leave for 6 weeks, where we still received our pay and health benefits, thank you God, and some others were unfortunately immediately let go. Again, throughout this time period, I was still applying for jobs, tweaking my resume, speaking to recruiters. I did have one job interview in February that went well. The hiring manager mentioned I was top of the list, but I honestly wasn't thrilled about the job, and I didn't feel like that's where I was supposed to be. But I was going to keep going through the process because I knew I needed to line something up. Ironically, the interview process slowed down due to something internal on their side. The Monday of the week that we were let go, I applied for the role that I currently have. A recruiter that I worked with at my previous job for sourcing candidates also sent me over the same role the day after we were let go. This coincidence was a sign for me. The following week, I received a call from a California number. It was a Wednesday evening, like around 5 p.m. If you know me, you know I don't answer calls from numbers I don't recognize, especially if it's after working hours. I waited for the call to go to voicemail to see what they wanted. And shout out to Apple for this feature. I was able to look at what they were saying as they were leaving the voicemail. I answered the phone when I realized it was for a job that I applied for. The call ended up being a pre-screening call with a very nice lady on the talent acquisition team. From that first call, I knew then that this was for me. The following week, I had a technical interview and it went great. The week after that, I had an interview with the VP of the department, and I felt that interview went great as well. During this week, the nice lady in the talent acquisition team also started interviewing for the role that I would be reporting to, so my boss. My previous boss was interviewing for that role. At the same time, I was interviewing for my current role. The next day after my interview with the VP, I dropped my kids off at school and I drove to the company's office. Yes, I drove there. It was an hour away from me. I sat in the parking lot and I prayed. I listened to Trusting God by Elevation Worship, and leaving the parking lot, I knew this was for me. The final week of interviews, I had 2 panel interviews, one day apart from each other. Each interview was another confirmation that this was the job and company I prayed for. Everyone I interviewed was just a breath of fresh air. You could just tell that this was a great company to work for. The following week, I received an email from the VP asking if I would be available for a call in 2 hours. I was out and about that day, so I didn't see the email, but thankfully she called anyways. And it was her offering me the job, y'all. I started the job a week after my 6-week garden leave ended, so I really didn't have a gap in pay. Y'all, this is the job that I asked God for back in September. He blessed me with everything I wrote down and that I laid at his feet that day. I'm not sure who this testimony is for, but God has been pushing me to tell my story publicly. If you know me, you know I'm not big on public speaking. He told me to speak on it when I accepted the job. I ignored him. The Sunday before I started working, the pastor preached about honoring up, and the message convicted me to tell my testimony. Yet again, I ignored him. In May, he sent another message about turning your work into a calling. Once again, convicted to speak, but I put it off. Oh, but this past Sunday, he convicted me once again. This time, I knew God was not playing with me. I heard the message loud and clear, and I knew I couldn't ignore him anymore. The pastor mentioned we have the free will to do what we want, but there are consequences when we fall outside of God's will. I don't want any smoke with God, so I knew I had to be obedient and do what he was instructing me to do. To sum it all up, if you are in a season of uncertainty or in a situation that you know you have to move away from, give it to God, lay it at his feet, start doing the work, moving as if the battle is already won. Believe he's going to work it out in your favor. Not one day did I stress about finding a job because I knew my God was going to work it out for my good and for his glory. Whatever your situation is, I'm telling you to trust God, because having peace in the midst of a storm is an indescribable feeling. Like I mentioned, I don't know who this message is for, but I'm being obedient to God. I ask that you share this message so that it can reach the person that it's destined for. Thank you for listening, and I pray peace and blessings over your life.